I was listening to your global hit, Safe and Sound. That was one of the biggest hits that any of us have ever heard. Are you aware that they're working on your song for Coca-Cola, or is that a surprise to you? Like you just hear it one day?
No, it's interesting because Coca-Cola initially requested demos from
Mm-hmm.
commercial jingle writers like myself and my current bandmate, Ryan Merchant. And we wrote Safe and Sound for this Coca-Cola ad before we even started the band.
Shut up.
And this cola brand rejected the song, which is when we decided to start the band because we liked the song and we were encouraged by a local record label to do this. Start a band, flesh out the song, make it like a 3-minute thing. So we added some more verses and added some trumpets and mixed it up and released it and started the band. And suddenly, you know, the song became a hit. Capitol Records picked it up, helped it kind of go global. We got to tour and all that stuff. And then years later, the Cola brand came back and asked us to license the song in a different way, with Zendaya covering it for this online campaign that they did. So
Did they remember?
I don't think so. I don't think they had any
Wow,
idea
so it
that they
just came
rejected that
full
song years
circle.
back. Yeah.
Okay, the irony of that. I mean, we've been friends for such a long time that there are some perks to that I know a little bit of background stuff to ask you, but that's definitely not something that I knew that you actually intended this song for Coca-Cola. That's crazy.
Yeah. Was any of that recorded right
It's
now?
all
It's all being
recorded.
recorded, right? Okay, great. So we've begun. Good.
Yes.
Good.
Now,
Sorry.
no, no,
Just
it's
double
okay.
check. This is the best way to start
But
an
that's
interview
actually
because I love it.
the funny thing is if you watch the episodes, that's how it is with every single guest. There's always a pause and there's like, wait, are we recording?
Yeah, yeah.
Nobody
I
ever
knew we
knows
were, but
that
I
we
just wanted to double check on.
Yeah,
Oh
no
my
one
gosh.
ever knows that we get started because we just jump right in. It makes it more organic. I hate introductions. I hate outros. It just takes you out of the whole thing.
That's why you're awesome. So.
Thank you. But I do want to talk about, I think the story of Safe and Sound is so interesting because you just kind of um, talked about it in a nutshell in a few seconds, but it's pretty wild how long it took for that song to become a hit. We hear it and it's one of the biggest songs in the world, but it didn't become a hit right away. In fact, it took a few years, didn't it?
Yeah, well, for the commercial gig, we wrote that in 2009. And then it took us about a whole year after we got rejected to figure out what to do with it, what sounds we should go for. We recorded like 7 different versions of the song. We didn't even have a good band name in the beginning. We called ourselves The Waves for a little while.
That's
until
kind
we
of a cool name,
Yeah, it was
though.
cool. But
I
then
like
there
that.
was another act that was kind of blowing up at the time called Waves,
Mm-hmm.
double A. Very interesting stuff. And we didn't want to compete with that. So then we just thought of capital cities, kind of random, to come up with the band name. But yeah, 2009 we wrote it. 2010 we re-recorded it, tested it out at live shows with different lineups. Sometimes we were totally rock, and then by the end we were a lot more kind of a electronic hybrid with more electronic beats and stuff like that. And so then we finally released the version that you're familiar with in 2011 independently as a single. And we just kind of watched it slowly climb the blogosphere. A year later, we signed with Capitol Records when they saw that it was just kind of climbing steadily but surely.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Hold on. Let's stop right there. How is it climbing? Is it just
At
you
the time,
are.
it was still like pre-social media, but the
Yeah.
blogosphere was hinting at this world of kind of like socially discovering music. But back then, it was still blogs. And all the blogs just kind of started randomly blogging about this song. And we don't know how that was initially catalyzed. But the real turning point was when a random alt-rock station in Peru, Lima, Peru, decided to pick it up. The music director discovered it on a blog probably, decided to just plug it into their regular rotation, and it shot to number 1 on that station. And it stayed at number 1 for like weeks. And that's when the record labels kind of started noticing, and Capitol Records came through with a pretty cool deal.
So do you get an email? Do you get a phone call? What
We got a
happens?
lot of phone calls. We got a lot of emails, and we were having phone calls every day for weeks.
How
Um,
are they finding you?
just they discovered the song organically because it was popping up on like hip blogs, and they're reviewing it positively. And of course, that radio station, they keep track of all kinds of metrics and research. They research like what's hits in other parts of the world, and they tap into it. And that's how they discovered us, I think.
Are you being strategic at the time and kind of business savvy, or are you just full on artist mode? I'm just, putting out my music and hey, surprise. Like, what's your mindset and your level of being proactive at the time?
I think it was a combination of trying to stay true and be artistic, but also trying to be business minded about it because I was already in my 30s, and I had been kind of working the music scene for 20 years at that point with other bands, side projects,
And really
and
great bands at that. I
thank you.
remember the Unknown Project, came to so many live shows, heard you live way before ever hearing you on the radio, and you were one of the best live bands on the scene for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, those bands were kind of the stepping stones for me and learning ground. Um, and I had come to a point where this new band was just going to be one last attempt at doing the rock and roll live recording act thing.
One
And
last attempt. Does that mean you're kind of getting discouraged because you're actually trying to get signed and it's
not
just
necessarily. It wasn't discouragement. It was just more like facing reality in a way that you're pragmatic and you could still be an artist and be creative and do things in a different way than actually be a recording artist and go on tour and make records. You could be a producer, you could be a songwriter, you could work behind the scenes. And, most artists can be flexible and should be flexible.
hmm
If you pigeonhole yourself in one craft and you don't succeed, you should be able to pivot and try different things. But I always had that dream to be in a band that was successful enough to go on tour and have demand for shows outside of just kind of the local scene, and it worked out with Capital Cities, and I kind of had this one last hurrah with it, and so far so good. Still kind of riding that safe and sound wave because it did become a pretty big hit.
So it sounds like you kind of knew, it sounds like you kind of knew that it was going to be a hit when you wrote the song. Because Coca-Cola passed on it, but you actually created the band as a result of that song being written. So you know that you're onto something, yeah?
Well, a lot of people heard the song in the process of making the demo,
Mm-hmm.
including the team, the company that we work for that, sends the music to ad agencies and stuff like that. And they were basically that little label I was talking about that encouraged us to take the song and make it something more than just a commercial demo.
So when you say that you're working with this agency, at the time you're writing jingles and you're trying to actually make music your job outside of the band?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did
Yeah.
how did that come about?
Well, I produced and recorded a lot of bands besides my own at my studio in Burbank called Stereo Train. And you meet all kinds of people, and Ryan Merchant, my bandmate, actually came in to the studio so that I could produce his solo project, his side project. And he actually fell upon this opportunity to write music for commercials, and he asked me to help him with that. And suddenly we were doing that. And that was paying the bills for a little while. And I took a break from recording my own music and playing my own band's shows. But then in the process, Safe Sound came about.
So tell me about getting signed. What does that change? Because you had been doing music independently for so many years. And then do you suddenly have the machine? What happens?
To be honest, it was a whirlwind. I know that before we got signed, things were kicking. things were popping with the song. We were getting downloads. We did this independently, but it was hard to say if we hadn't got signed, would it really blow up to where it finally ended up? I think the machine, the big labels, at least at that time, it was kind of necessary for us to take it to that next level. Because when they came in, that's when we had a little bit more of a budget to work with, and we spent some good money on a really nice music video. And the music video is what also helped give the song some visibility. I think it was nominated for a Grammy. It was actually that first year that the Grammys introduced a music video category. And we were nominated for that. We didn't win, but we got to go to the Grammys. Yeah, I think the label ultimately helped. We had a pretty good deal with them. It was a short 2-album deal with good splits. And now we're technically independent. After our second album, our contract ran out with them. We decided to go independent, and we're working with a distribution company called Downtown Music, which right after we signed with them, they got bought by Universal Music. So suddenly we're back in the same umbrella, but technically we're independent. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Independent versus machine, pros and cons.
Depends on the stage that you're at. If you're in the beginning stages, it's good to have a big machine backing you up and supporting you with not just money, but also all the connections and staff and ideas. And so yeah, but then if you've established yourself and you could do things more effectively independently, it's better to be independent, because not only do you keep more of the cut from the income, but you have more creative control and you can have more fun. You don't have to go through all this bureaucracy.
Are there a lot of hands in you creating the music with a machine? Like, you could make the hook catchier, you could do this, you could do that. Like, is there a lot of
Yeah, and it's case by case. And for us,
interference?
even it was different with the first album compared to the second album.
Mm-hmm.
In both cases, we ended up doing exactly what we wanted, how we wanted to do it. But during the second album, there was a lot more vocal people from the label side that wanted to get involved and wanted to kind of do things differently, creatively.
Is that frustrating when you're
It wasn't that bad. It was just noticeably different than the first album, but ultimately it wasn't that difficult to kind of do what we wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. What about actual like self-branding? Have you had to work on that? And how is it now with social media? Do you feel the pressure to create content to get your music out there and all of the stuff that most musicians complain about nowadays?
Well, yeah, I don't really like being on social medias. I don't really have a social media personality. A lot of music has kind of piled up over the years, and I'm excited about releasing them soon. So I will definitely use social media as a platform to showcase all that music through videos, but I can't regularly get on and be like, what's up, guys? So listen, man, I have this new idea or this thing. I did this thing. I did that thing. I can't do that. I do enjoy watching a lot of that. It sucks when you start doom scrolling. But a lot of it's cool. I got no hate towards that. I wish I could do more of it, actually.
Me too. But it's just so awkward for me to talk to the camera. And I sometimes feel like, okay, I have to train myself. But it's just weird, right?
Yeah, and I think we're going through a constantly evolving thing right now. We're like in the middle of it, in the thick of it, with social media and this new, basically, habit. Back in the day, it was the TV, and we would complain about people being couch potatoes. Yeah. Now we don't use that term anymore because you don't need a couch
to be a potato
anymore.
Yeah.
So now we're just wandering potatoes.
Yeah.
With little devices in our hands. But I feel like hopefully it won't get worse. It's kind of bad right now, but I can't hate on it because there's also a lot of good stuff on
Mm-hmm.
social media, good music, good art, comedy, news. And at the moment, I'm in it, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna be showcasing my music through that. But I do kind of wish that everybody went back to old school websites. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
discover my music, instead of trying to find me on even Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, go to our websites. So my
Which is.
band is capitalcities.com and my personal website is sebu.cc.
So I think that social media is an amazing tool to discover stuff. And when you sent me the Capital City song with Andre 3000, I love him as an artist as well. And I had no idea you guys had a collaboration, and it was so dope. How had I never heard that before?
Thank you. Well, because the collaboration, the original version, is on the first album, but it's this very obscure experimental track. You'll hear him do a verse, but it doesn't highlight him. He's just kind of comes in like a cameo on that track. So it didn't become, a hit, I guess. Even though it's a very interesting song. In
It's
fact,
a
I think it's
dope
my favorite song
song.
off the first album. And then recently we released another album called A Hurricane of Frowns, which is basically our first album, but from a parallel universe. So you'll hear all our songs from the first album, but like different versions of it, where we've had like other demos, or we redid them, but then we didn't release the new version, or some of them, have guests on them, some don't. So this Andre 3000 song has a kind of a brand new different version that you can hear on this new album that we just released, and in it his vocals are a little bit more upfront and more kind of like hooky. So we kind of re-released it mostly for diehard fans. We're huge Andre 3000 fans, of course.
It was a collaboration that totally made sense. When I saw it, I was like, yeah, that's exactly who you would do a collaboration with. It just
Yes,
sonically, it sounded amazing.
yes, yes. And when we wrote that song, we knew we needed a verse, kind of like a hip hopish rap song R&B type verse, and we made a wish list of who we wanted to contact, and he was number one, and he we contacted him, and he said, "Sure, I'll do it."
So was that the label? Was that you? How did that
That
come about?
was a combination of the label and our manager putting their heads together and reaching out to him pretty much directly. They all have relationships with managers. They all know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and he was able to get a phone call in there.
Did you actually get into the studio
No, we
together, or
sent him the demo.
he recorded
He
his
recorded it, sent it
verse?
back to
Yeah.
us. It was perfect. We had one phone call, and he was very cool on the phone. And we sent him a mix, and he said, "My vocals are a little too low. Turn me up." I said, "Okay, okay, sure, no problem." And that was it.
That's so
Yeah,
cool. But it would be cool to give that another run to now in the day of social media
I
where
know.
it's such a great
I
tool,
know.
because if I hadn't heard that song, then oh my God.
Actually, speaking of social media, you know Paul Karmirian?
Yeah.
He's the dancer. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He actually used that piece of music for a video he put together that he directed. Actually, he's not even dancing in it. He directed it with another dancer, and it's this cool animated thing. You should check it out.
Yeah, definitely. No, definitely. Okay, so what's Capital Cities up to right now?
We're working on our next full length album. It's going to be called Making Up the Rules. We just released a song called Fuck It a couple weeks ago. Um, and that basically gives you an idea of where our headspace is with the album and just life in general. Life is short, so fuck it. We're all gonna kick the bucket, and we decided to leak that one out or tease our fans because it was ready, and we don't want to wait till we finish the entire album before we release stuff. So we decided to start releasing singles, and our next single is going to be called Late for School, and that's coming out very soon. And then we're going to follow up with a bunch of singles until the album comes out early part of next year.
Do you feel a certain kind of pressure, even just with yourself, not from other people, because you've had such a massive global hit? Do you feel like you have to make stuff that lives up to that, or are you able to just freely create and whatever happens happens? Like, what's your emotional attachment with that kind of stuff?
Um, there is actually, I don't really feel much pressure because I'm lucky that the song, even though it kind of feels like it's a one hit wonder, it's not because it's lasted such a long time. Stood the test of time, and it just keeps allowing me to experiment and stay in music, and it's still creating demand for other parts of the world for shows. So we get called to do festivals and stuff like that. And with the other songs like Kangaroo Court and Vowels and 1 Minute More, which didn't become huge hits, but they're there to keep our diehard fans happy. And we get so much love and excitement when we put new music out. So I really don't need to have another big hit because, I've been blessed to be able to just keep riding that wave and make music as I please, and now finally get a chance to record and write for my side projects and my solo projects, and let those give those a chance to see a little bit of visibility.
Your previous band, To Capital Cities, was very different in sound. And then you've also had big hits in Armenia with My Husband, Mikani Hoki. So having kind of like such a wide range in style, is it hard for you to consistently work with one band that has a very specific sound? Or like do you go back and forth a lot? Or how is that for you? Because you've always had really amazing songs in all the different kind of genres and experiments that you've done with music. How do you pick the lane that you want to be in now?
I kind of just let the world and circumstances dictate where I end up creatively, musically, because I can't say no to people, especially if they come to me with a demo that's just interesting and cool. I don't care what genre it is. If it makes me feel something, I want to work on it and experiment. So I've been lucky to have had enough, I guess, visibility and different clicks of music that I've been offered to collaborate with so many different types of musicians. And Misho is one example, and the two tracks that we've done together are so different than what I would do on my own. It kind of allows me as a vocalist and a lyricist to explore. And when an artist gets a chance to explore, they're just kind of on cloud nine. Exploration is the coolest part of being an artist, music or visual arts, whatever. And when you have other interesting artists that are very different than you wanting to collaborate with you, it just leads to all kinds of unexpected cool things.
The song that you did with Serge Tankian, the vocalist of System of a Down, My Husband Misho, it was one of the coolest songs for me. Like, I still listen to that song until today. I love that song. And the three of you are so different in style, but somehow you just came together creatively so well. How does it feel to work with Armenian guys that are musically so different, but you guys share that cultural connection together? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, it's really cool. That track, Introvert, Call Me Crazy, was so unexpected when Misho and Serge Misho actually reached out first with the beat and like their demos, their ideas on top of it. It just like it 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 surprised me. It's like, wow, there's artists, especially in Armenia, that are really trying to do things differently. They're not trying to copy what the rest of the world is doing. They want to do things their own way. They like getting darker and deeper and more twisted, but also jazzy and melodic. And then there's always hints of old Armenian folk music in there. Always, there's always just some kind of twisted instrument or a melody or something that connects the past as well. So I take that on all the time, as much as I can. I've collaborated with Jivan Jr. on a bunch of stuff, A Chilla, Sirusho, Beirut. Actually, I just released my debut solo album, and there's 2 tracks on there with Beirut, which has that kind of Armenian connection with the production vibes. So I'm blessed. And I'd love to keep that going. Collaborations with especially Armenian producers, but anyone all over the world, bring it on. It leads to good things.
When Misha and I were talking about having a cool melodic hook on one of the songs, I told him, you have to meet my friend Seb. You have to talk to him, because I just knew you always come up with something so unexpected, so unpredictable, but so beautiful. Do you just have this like instinct for writing dope hooks, or is that something you came to through education? Like how do you have that special skill and talent?
Thank you. Wow. That means a lot. And I will say that I have to give credit where credit is due, which is previous songwriters and other bands and songwriters that I respect and admire. You always want to take the stuff that you've heard, that you love, that has moved you, and look at it and think about it critically and analyze it and turn it into a craft and try to understand why it moved you. So, whether it's a Pink Floyd song or a Beatles song or a Komitas song or an Aram Khachadurian piece, they all, at the end of the day, employ the 2 simplest things, or one simple thing, which is called a melody. And then in terms of songs and rock songs, words, right? It's about melody and lyrics. So you could have been moved by a song in the early 90s and it could have been a hip hop track. But if you sit there and dissect it, you'll realize that there were 2 things about that song that you liked: the melody and the words, or a combination of the 2. So then, for me, when I discovered that at the end of the day, that's all it was about. It didn't matter what style the song was. It was just about melody and lyrics. Then suddenly all the genres became one genre to me. So I started taking that approach as a songwriter, which is like, you could produce the most amazing drum beats with computers, but if you can't take that same song and just play it on an acoustic guitar and sing, and it doesn't feel as good, then that means it's not a good song. So you can't hide behind really good production. But if you can do both, where you have a really good song and you have great production, then you should be lucky enough.
Can you think of a really dope song that has great production, but you can't actually reproduce it acoustically? Like, it just won't work?
I mean, a lot of dance music is like that. And so the best dance tracks are the ones where you can do that, where you can like turn the song off and just play it on a guitar and sing. But there's a lot of dance music where it really is about the production, and that's okay, and that's great, because you have a different type of experience. You hear a really loud kick and a really loud, perfectly EQ'd snare and hi-hats and stuff like that. That translates really well at the festival stages, where you could kind of lose your mind and dance. But if on top of that there was like a really nice melody and a nice lyrical idea, then you fly into the moon.
What's one of your favorite songs that you feel like could be done in all different kinds of ways and just sounds great every way?
That's interesting. Man, a lot of Beatles songs, a lot of Pink Floyd songs. Recently, I got into a Doors kick all of a sudden. And I was a huge fan of the Doors in my teenage years, and when I started bands, we were a cover band. We covered a lot of Doors songs. And then I took a break from them decades later, I revisited all of their albums just this last couple months, and I realized how musical they actually are, and they're perceived to be this dirty kind of rootsy rock LA band. It's very rugged, but then if you dissect the chords and the intricate things that Ray Manzarek and Robbie Krieger were doing, it's really beautiful. And so that's an example of a band with songs that could easily be played on an acoustic guitar. Riders on the Storm. So anyway, yeah.
Nice. You know what I think is worth also mentioning is how heavily you've actually explored Armenian folk music and your, I think, several years at Lark Music Conservatory.
I actually have worked and taken lessons with Vache Barsumyan, who
A dear mutual friend of both
Lark
of ours,
Music Conservatory.
yes.
I actually haven't particularly studied there at the institute, but
Oh, I thought you were a student
no,
there.
I've been a student of Vache's
Mm-hmm.
directly, mastermind and a Gomidas armenologist, musicologist, and he has definitely been integral in kind of showing me what Armenian music is all about, especially Gomidas. Him and my mom back in the day would collaborate in organizing choir concerts and recitals and things like that, classical stuff, and they released music of Komitas choir stuff, and so that exposed me to the Armenian folk music world, which I try to incorporate every once in a while in my music. I'm a huge fan of Komitas, and I'm actually about to release a song called I Came Down from the Mountain, which is a translation of Yes Saren Gukai. And I'm excited about this release because, first of all, Artyom Manukyan is all over it. His cello is just ridiculous. And then recently, I connected with Antanik Berberian and Arman Nishanyan, who suggested that I perform this song in front of an orchestra at the Echoes of Our Ancestors concert event that's happening at the Greek Theater on September 12th. And so this orchestral version is suddenly like beautiful. I heard the demo that of what it's going to sound like at the show. So I'm going to actually be releasing that song, hopefully with the orchestral backing on it very soon. And that's just one of many songs that I intend to translate into English or do a hybrid version of the song of Gomidas songs. There's other songs that are just so beautiful and could very easily be accessible to the Western ear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about time that people heard Gomidas as the songwriter that he was.
Mm-hmm. My grandparents would absolutely agree with you.
Yes.
Yeah, no, Vacha was instrumental in also bringing them here, for them to have lectures here about Komitas as well. So,
Yes.
yeah, I love Vacha. So, how are you preparing for this concert? Is it something that you have experience with, working with an orchestra, or is this just totally new territory
This is
for
brand new territory for me, but I do have some background in classical music. I studied music in college. I was in a choir. I've been in choirs all my life, from elementary school all the way to college, and I've sung in front of orchestras with the choir. But I hadn't done anything like this as a solo recording artist ever, actually. But so far, the back and forth with the musical director has been really good, and we're going to have rehearsals before the show, a few days in front of the orchestra, and I think it's going to be fine.
Do you ever get nervous, or have you been done getting nervous
I
for?
get nervous often.
Do you?
Yeah, especially if there's a lot of moving parts, and
Mm-hmm.
there could be a technical mishap, and that's happened a number of times, and it's really dreadful. But if everything is going smoothly and the crowd's good and the sound system is good and I'm prepared and my band is prepared, I don't get too nervous.
Have you ever had a point in your life where you're like, I'm just done with music? Or you've consistently been like, no matter what the difficulties, this is all I can do?
Um, yeah, I don't think I'll ever not do music. There have been times where some of the touring with the band got a little difficult. Um, Security lines, constantly just no sleep, a lot of public press appearances, which can be challenging if you're an introvert. uh, and of course, kids came into my life. I have 3 kids now, and I'd rather chill at home with them than constantly relentlessly tour. So I've just kind of adjusted to life circumstances. But I don't think I'll ever not do music. It's been okay so far.
So you describe yourself as an introvert?
Um, if I yeah, I would be more of an introvert than an extrovert. But if I'm in my element, which is to say, if I'm doing music that I love and I'm comfortable singing and playing, uh, I'm not so much of an introvert. Uh, I can get on stage and do what I need to do.
When you have huge crowds that are singing along to your music and then coming and wanting to take photos with you and meet with you and all of that, does it come naturally to you, or because you're a little bit of an introvert, maybe a little shy, is it awkward for you?
Inside, I'm kind of shy, but on the outside, I kind of play along and have fun with the moment because I realize that a lot of these fans at the shows, especially, are just having the time of their life, and I've experienced that too in my youth when I watch my favorite bands, and I know how it feels. So I want to help them take it to the next level, and if it really makes them happy to give me a high five or take a picture, I'll definitely do that and give that because it's fun and I want to show appreciation.
Looking at your career from the first kind of proactive step that you took until today and the success that you've experienced, what would you say were the key elements that actually made you successful on the business side of things too?
Um, I think you do kind of have to go into it blindly and with overconfidence um, when you're making music. But the key is to be prolific, do a lot of work, and not worry if it's just a string of failures, because they're not failures. They're just investments. And even if you think you're a great writer, you still have to be lucky to come up with a truly amazing piece of artwork, whether it's a song or a painting, because sometimes a melody could come to you accidentally. You know, it might not even be you. It just, maybe you overheard somebody say something and it sounded like a melody. Maybe, who knows how it came to you. The planets kind of have to align. And the more work you do, the more likely it is for those planets to align. So don't give up. Just do as much as you can, as often as you can. And that would be, I think, one of the keys to success, just to do a lot. And don't worry too much about quality over quantity. Quantity is also important because you never know which one of those random extra bits of work that you did on the side that could be the magic piece.
So what's your daily life like? Are you constantly recording music?
No. Maybe half the time. The other half is definitely babysitting. I mean, parenting, um, which is great. And so I try to. Right now, I'm in a place where I'm trying to organize all the music that has been piled up over the years. So there's Capital Cities music coming out. There's Sebu album coming out, my second album. And then you mentioned my previous bands. all of them have albums that haven't been technically officially been released on
I still have a couple
Spotify.
of them.
You know, a lot of them are just on physical CDs, and
Mm-hmm.
diehard fans from back in the day have them, but that's about it. So I'm planning the re-release of those
Mm-hmm.
albums on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So there's The Unknown Project. There was my first band called I.O. And so
Oh,
all of these
I
have
forgot about
albums
that.
that are waiting to be released. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to do that.
Ayo had quite the buzz back in the day. I remember that band.
That's when it all kind of started for me. And members of that band branched out as well to do other really cool side projects like Slow Motion Rain and The Dirty Diamond. And then I did
Wait,
The
who was in
Unknown
Ayo? Was it
Project,
Sam and
Sam and Narek and Vegan.
Narc and Vegan?
God bless his soul.
Yeah. Wow, I didn't realize that all three of them. So just Erwin from Slow Motion Rain
Yeah.
wasn't in the band.
Yeah, Erwin was in Slow Motion Rain.
Okay.
Yeah, shout out to the good old days.
Wow. I remember when System of a Down got signed, there was a lot of hype for other Armenian rock bands or rock bands that had Armenian members that, okay, there's a chance. Because before that, it was not really in our belief system that Armenians could hit like a super big level in music. Do you remember your thoughts at the time? Was it like an encouraging thing? Because
System of a Down.
is System of a Down getting signed and starting to
Yes.
blow up?
Man, I was a kid when they were starting to pick up a buzz in the mid 90s, and I would go to their concerts at the Whiskey and the Roxy, and most of them were sold out, but some of them weren't even sold out. And I think Serge stage dived on top of me once, and I don't even know if I was able to carry him because the other people just kind of scrambled away. I don't know if he remembers that, but it was
Wait,
really.
so are you saying you let him drop?
No. I tried to hold him, but it was just
Okay.
me, so it wasn't very. I wasn't very successful.
Okay.
He just hopped back up, and it was fine. But point is, I saw them, rise from really.
So you
small
weren't
plays.
friends with him at the time?
No. I think
Oh.
we maybe got acquainted. I got introduced, but we became friends a lot later. And it was just really cool to see them rise, and all these other bands, including myself, wanted to follow in their footsteps and see if we could basically get signed. It was all about trying to get signed to these major labels, and whoever did experienced something cool. Maybe not the crazy success that they were hoping for, but it was definitely an interesting experience for any of those bands at the time that got any kind of recognition and got signed.
That was such a hot time for bands. All of the bands that were performing at the Troubadour, the Whiskey, the Key Club, at that time, it was even just unknown bands. It was fun listening to them because there was just a different vibe
Yeah.
at that time. What happened to that? Why is it no longer
I
there?
don't know. There was, the style of music also is important to note that at the time, hard rock was popular, very popular. And so there was a lot of rock bands playing shows. And then suddenly it all became about dance music and electronic music, which I also love. But the smaller, dirty rock clubs weren't good venues for dance music. You needed bigger spaces with better sound systems. And I think maybe that's why, we don't really... I kind of do miss the rock and roll days.
That was such a fun time. Are there any up-and-coming rock bands that you listen to now? Or how do you even discover new music now?
Yeah. Honestly, I kind of don't listen to much music because my kids are always taking over my
You're listening
music.
to Miss Rachel.
No, fast Miss Rachel, but like random dance tracks or weird productions that are usually have gone viral because of some video game that they're into. And that's all we listen to. So I can't even tell you who they are.
Okay, but because you have this gift for catchy melodies, do you ever think about or do you write for other artists?
Um, I try to. I want to take on more collaborations with other artists that are the focal point, like other singers, where I do more songwriting and production in the background. Um, I haven't done that enough, but I will say that there's an amazing artist named Alex Rizion that I cannot wait to see her blow up because she's so talented. And I got the chance to work with her with Capital Cities. She features on a song called She Flows Like H2O. And so check that song out on the Capital Cities album, A Hurricane of Frowns. And she has her own thing going. She's released a bunch of singles as a solo artist. She's kind of taking a break right now to, I think, regroup. But I'm hopeful that I could be a part of that songwriting process. And so with her, we have collaborated or are working on some demos. And to answer your question, I do like to try different things with other artists, for other artists, and change my hat a little bit and become more of a producer and songwriter behind the scenes. So there's a lot that will happen. She's just hopefully the first of a number of projects that'll come up.
Your collaboration with Andre 3000 was so dope. Do you ever think about doing other similar collaborations? Similar meaning like maybe other hip hop
Hmm.
collaborations or
Our second album has a collaboration with Rick Ross, of all people. And the song is called Girl Friday. So we do want to keep that tradition alive.
how did that come about?
That was also kind of amazing how it happened. In fact, I think Rick Ross reached out to us because he had heard our first album. In fact, he heard it even before we put it out. Like, I think someone shared the demo because we were reaching out to hip hop artists. And he loved Kangaroo Court. He invited us to his studio in Burbank. We met him. He sat us down. He said, hey, let's listen to Kangaroo Court. And he turned it on and blasted it past 10. I was like, earplugs, please. It was him and Swizz Beats, actually. And me and Ryan are just sitting there on the couch saying, what's going on right now? He blasted the track, and they were just singing along and saying this is a great track. So thank you so much. Hopefully we'll collaborate on the next album on something. He's like, yes, definitely. So fast forward 5 years later, our second album finally comes out with him on it because we reached out to him and sent him a demo called Girl Friday. He liked it, recorded his verse, just like Andre 3000, sent it over the internet, the interweb, email. Remember that? He emailed the track, his vocals. We mixed it, released it. So hopefully we'll have another random collaboration like that for the next album. But I don't want to start any rumors
So were
yet.
you a Rick Ross fan before meeting him?
Um, I wasn't necessarily a fan because I was very appreciative of his style. I knew there was something so cool about how deep and thuggish his vocal delivery was. So I liked his style and delivery.
Biggest boss.
Right. And I thought it would be so funny to have this sound that isn't typically capital cities, and it's kind of the opposite of what we sound like, to blend together in this track. And he, I think, sensed or saw the humor in the track and how funny it would be for him to rap what he did, and it worked. So I'm very grateful. Very cool guy, actually. When we met him in person, he was very kind and humble, actually.
Are there any misconceptions you feel like you had about the industry or other artists that your experience has kind of changed?
I don't know. Touring, we toured very extensively for about two periods, two seasons. I said 2 years. It took a tiny break in the middle when Rafi was born, my first son, and went back on the road with Rafi on the tour bus. So it was such a whirlwind, and there was so much going on that I could only just focus on what I do, and not mess up. Um, so the music industry, in general, the entertainment industry, I would say, is pretty crazy. a lot of crazy people.
What's the
Um,
craziest thing you've experienced?
um, craziest thing. I can't. I think like I said, I was in a bubble. I tried not to experience the crazy stuff. I would go play the show, and then like most of the time, call it a night and go to the hotel and rest.
Do you think a part of it is also because you were already in your 30s, you were married, so you were kind of grounded? It didn't take over your brain completely.
Probably, but also because if I did all that, I would probably get exhausted. And I've heard so many stories of people, musicians on tour getting sick and getting mentally ill as well. Um,
How did you mitigate industry pressures? Because it is a lot of pressure. That level of success.
am blessed with having a nice circle of family and friends. My wife is very supportive and always been by my side as a teammate in this process. She's my business manager. And then all my family and friends, my parents, my cousins have always just been watching me do what I do and have always been supportive. I've always had a home to come to in LA. We have a nice community here of friends and family and musicians. So that community is what's helped me stay grounded, I guess.
Looking back, what do you pat yourself on the back on? Wait, well, how do you say that? How? What do you pat yourself on the back
Uh
about
huh.
the most? Where you're like, that was a smart fucking move. I'm so glad I did that.
Uh, um, I think it was when Safe and Sound got rejected that we didn't give up on the song, you know.
Do you
Um,
remember what they told you, but why they didn't like it or why they
no, and it
rejected
was
it?
absolutely no hard feelings because it's so subjective, and we would get rejected all the time. We would write 30 demos in a month, and all of them but one would get rejected. The one that would get chosen would be perfect, and we'd realize that we nailed that one, whereas we didn't nail the other ones. And in this case, we realized that the song was great, but it didn't perfectly fit the theme that they were going for, and they ended up picking a track that was completely different. And I've watched that version, and it's awesome, actually, but not necessarily better. At least not from our perspective, because we're biased and we loved what we did. But recognizing what you do as good or bad is a skill. To know that something is really good and to put all your eggs in that basket at the right time, in the right way, that'll help you succeed. And to also recognize that something isn't great and kind of just give up on it is also difficult to do, but it's important.
So, are you able to not take it personally and be very pragmatic about the rejections?
Totally. I think. I mean, I was kind of experiencing 20 years of rejection up until that point, but it wasn't like outright rejection. I was still encouraged, and there was
Well, what
always
kind of
encouragement.
rejection? Like trying to get signed kind of
Yeah,
rejection? Because your shows were always packed. You had a lot
packed,
of
but it was
fans.
local. We didn't expand outside of the LA market, and it was at the end of the day still mostly friends and fans, friends and family.
What was the
Um,
toughest rejection that you experienced? Is there a criticism or anything that anyone told you
the
that?
hardest parts, the hardest times for me was when my bands would dissolve, because all of my previous bands, I dedicated a lot of time and energy and heart and soul into all of them. At least four distinct rock bands with members and partnerships and all that stuff. And we would spend at least 2 years on each of these bands. I spent at least 2 years kind of dedicating everything. And they didn't work out. We broke up. We didn't succeed, whatever. It's like, oh, start from scratch, start all over. But in hindsight, I'm so glad I experienced all of that, because each of those bands taught me how to create in different ways, taught me how to collaborate and cooperate and compromise. So those were dark, difficult moments, but otherwise it's mostly been a positive experience.
So up and coming artists who have similar struggles, professional struggles, what advice would you give them? What do you feel like was the biggest life lesson?
I think I would repeat what I said earlier, was do a lot. Do a lot.
Quantity over
quantity and
quality.
try to do both,
Yeah.
quality and quantity. But quantity is important because trial and error is important. The more you do, the more you find yourself and you find what you're good at.
That's true.
And of course, practice doesn't make perfect, but you can get closer to it.
Is there anything you would have done differently?
I think there's probably some business decisions that were that were not good. And in hindsight, you can always say, "Oh, if I had done this, we could have probably done this better." Like, let's say, I don't know, sell more merch. If we had kind of played the merch game a little bit, which Capital Cities never did, and we're kind of starting to get into that right now. And it's exciting. It's fun because that's another outlet. Like, actually coming up with artwork for merchandise and T-shirts and stuff like that is kind of a cool creative thing that we didn't do much of. So maybe there were some business decisions that we could have done better.
You know what question has stayed with me for like over a decade now? Do you remember when I was working with Larry King, I invited you to come and do an interview, and I believe it. Oh, no. This wasn't with Larry King. This was an episode with Andy Garcia, Ozo Motley, Ringo Starr, at a studio that I was working with. And you just kind of like disappeared for a few weeks, and then you came back. Or maybe it was for both. One was for that and one was for Larry King. But yeah, you kind of were like not keen on doing interviews, I think. But I was like, it's Ringo Starr, it's Larry King. Like, how are you not kind of excited about this? Were you just too cool for school?
No,
like, what was
all.
happening with
No,
that?
first of all, if you tell me exactly what the date was, I'd probably say, oh, that's because the kid's this, the kid's that,
One was 2012-ish.
That far back?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was over a
Oh my
decade
gosh.
ago.
I must have.
And look at how long this has stayed
Yeah.
in my mind, where I'm like, how? Why? It's
Yeah.
Ringo Starr. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I must have had a good reason, because and 2012 was that year that we're like, what the hell is going on? Are we really going on this ride or what?
Yeah.
In fact, I think 2012 was when we started independently tour. Before we even got signed, we were like, hey, let's rent it was called a bandwagon back then. It wasn't even a tour bus. It was an RV that was like with bunk beds in it. And it was very dangerous, and it was very uncomfortable. And we're like, let's give this a shot. And we organized our own tour. And that was 2012. It was a whirlwind, I got to say. I must have been
You
like
guys were huge.
crossing the Western Texas territory. Have you ever driven through Western Texas?
No.
It's the most barren and ugly looking place. Western Texas. Eastern Texas is amazing.
Okay.
I love you, Texas. But, doing that drive for the first time independently in a very dangerous car where you, an RV where you sleep overnight and the driver isn't even licensed.
Oh, my God.
We were doing things DIY, and we probably made some. Actually, I just remember that bus crashed while on the one day that we were not on it.
Oh, my God.
The driver crashed the bandwagon, and if we were in it, it would have been bad.
Oh, no.
So yeah, we've made mistakes, close calls, I would say.
You were killing my gangster moment because I was like, okay, this is such a cool opportunity. We have Ringo Starr here.
Oh
We
my gosh.
have, yeah, Dave Stewart. It was like a really cool thing. And I was like, oh, now I'm going to use my Armenian connection to bring Seven with capital cities. And this is going to be just like a whole cool episode.
I missed out on that. That's for sure.
This episode is sponsored by Voskevas Winery in Armenia. This family-run wine castle is known for its unique architecture and award-winning wines. Planning a tasting, tour, or special event, call 374-9955-0970.
If you guys want to explore more of my stuff and my side projects, you can go to sebu.cc. My debut album came out in May called Many Faces, and there's some interesting tracks on there that you should check out, including the 2 collaborations I mentioned with Peru. I have another collaboration with another Armenian producer named Eraser Face.
Oh, haven't heard
And
of
that
him.
track is called The Worst That Could Happen to Us. So if you want to hear a different side of me, different than Capital Cities, check out my solo stuff. It's a little darker and moodier and sometimes weirder. And I'm working on my second album, which will be called Astronomical Questions. And then, as I mentioned, Capital Cities' next album, Making Up the Rules. And then other side projects, including the Unknown Project, and a new album that's actually coming out with my old band. I have another side project called Mended Minds with a young producer called Jonah Walsh. And that album is in the works. It's almost complete. So there's a lot of stuff lined up. Too much to keep in mind, but I appreciate, the time that you've given me, allowed me to talk about my stuff. And
I'm glad we got
thank
to
you.
catch up on all this stuff because, you're friends, but sometimes you don't really talk about work stuff together. And there's a lot that I learned about you that I didn't know
and
all
we
these
go
years.
we go way back, and you were there from the very beginning, the Troubadour days.
Great seeing you, and I really look forward to that concert and hearing your Gomita song with the orchestra.
Thank you.
That'll be
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sebjan.
All right. Thanks, Sona.
A huge thanks to Torpedo Comics and Essentia Beauty Spa for helping to make this podcast possible. You've probably seen Torpedo Comics in your local malls, but you can also visit them online at torpedocomics.com for an amazing selection of comics and collectibles. As for Essentia Beauty Spa, their beauty experts are truly unparalleled. I trust Diana, the founder, with all of my hair needs. She's simply the best. For more information, visit essentiabeautyspa.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Your support helps this channel grow, allowing us to bring you even more engaging and high-quality content. You can also follow us across all social media platforms.